To brow block, we are going to first start by combing the opposite way with the glue stick onto the eyebrow. This will help ensure that every single hair is coated with Elmer's glue before trying to stick it down. If each hair wasn't covered, it wouldn't lay down properly. Next, we're going to take a disposable spoolie and start combing out the hair. We are combing up and out to help ensure that no hairs will be laying on top of each other, and this will help with a smooth finish in the end. And then we are just going to repeat the process of going back and forth with the glue and the spoolie until every single hair is covered and laying flat. Next, I like to take a handheld fan just to make sure that the drying is fully dried before moving on and to help speed up the process a little bit. Then we're going in with some loose powder. The powder is just going to help fill in any of the crevices or holes that were left by the glue to help smooth it out a little bit more for a better finish. And we are just going back and forth between powder and then brushing off the excess, powder and then brushing off the excess. Next, we are going to color correct with an orange concealer. Orange helps cancel out brown tones, so it will help get rid of the brown in the eyebrows that we have so we can have a more smooth finish on top that looks like there is no hair underneath. I am just patting this concealer on until it is all over, covering every single hair that I have, and then I'm going to blend it out with a sponge and repeat the process until I cannot see any more of the hair. After you are done, make sure to set it with some powder, just to help lock it in before we move on to concealer. This locking it in with the powder helps make sure that the orange toned concealer doesn't mix with the concealer we're putting on top and make it look all wonky and brown. It ensures that it is nice and secured down with that powder before going in with this concealer. Next, we're going to go in with the concealer and we're just going to pat that all around, covering the brow as much as we can. And you can even go back and forth using foundation and concealer until you get the desired coverage that you want. Be sure to not pat too hard because that will bring up some of the product and it will, take a little bit longer to get that done. So try not to press too hard with the sponge when applying this concealer and foundation. And you can even switch it up and use a brush or your finger to help pat it out a little bit lighter so you do not disturb the product that is underneath. And just repeat that process as much as you need to until the brow is completely covered and the orange concealer is completely covered and you have a blank canvas to work on. Make sure to dry that off a little bit with a fan, just because you have so many layers on, going straight in with powder would disturb it, so drying it helps a little bit more before we go in with that powder. Now we're going to set that area with our translucent loose powder, and this is just going to ensure that everything is going to stay in place as we continue to draw on top of it for the eyebrow. And really make sure that you pack this on there and get it everywhere so there's not a single bit of that concealer or wet foundation showing through. Next, we're going to mark out where our eyebrows are going to go. We need to mark out the front, the arch, and the tip. The front will be straight up from where your nose is. The arch will be at an angle from where the tip of your nose is. And then last, the tail will be off of the angle of your nostril and the end of your eye. And just mark those out, play around with it if you need to. You can always cover up these with concealer if you mess up or put it in the right spot. It is super easy to fix any mistakes with concealer. So really just play around until you find the height and shape that you like. Next, we're going to start drawing it on. We're just going to first connect the lines before worrying about any shape or any sort of thickness. So first I'm just going to connect these lines with a very, very thin line to make sure that I like the positioning of the eyebrow. Now that I like the positioning of the eyebrow, I'm just going to go in with more of that eyebrow fill in, and I'm just going to keep building it up until I get it the thickness and shape that I like. I'm still going for a pretty thin brow, but I want it a little bit thicker than just a singular line. So I'm just building that up and also building up the darkness a little bit more so it can be seen. Again, don't worry about any mistakes that you make because we're going to go back and fix it with concealer when we're done. Now that you finish that, we're going to go in with some concealer and we're just going to carve out the bottom of that brow to make sure that it is nice and clean like we like. You do not need a lot of concealer for this, just enough that your brush is going to glide across the skin. And you're just going to get rid of any imperfections you don't like, clean up any lines that are bothering you, and if you had any dots that were in the right area, this is also the time to clean those up. And really take your time with this, making sure that you are getting the exact shape that you want with your brow. And this is the finished brow. This is about the shape you should be going for, but of course go for whatever shape makes you feel beautiful.